So, by no means is this a comprehensive list of strategies, but it's a few things that you can maybe be thinking about. So, first of all, social media and social media marketing has turned out to be a really strong platform for communicating about sustainability. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other platforms that are effective as well. Uh, we've seen, just to name a few, we've seen, I spoke earlier about Pope Francis. Um, the platform that Pope Francis used for communicating about climate change was an encyclical. Well, I didn't even know what an encyclical was until I read about Pope Francis writing this encyclical on climate change and it becoming um, a, a a document recognized by the Catholic Church because the Pope wrote it. So that works within that particular uh, venue for that particular person. Greta Thunberg has turned out to be a really effective speaker. And then she has also turned out to be a very effective social media communicator. Uh, I'm sure that most of you know about her takedown recently of Andrew Tate and how effective that was. And that went viral and she was trending for a number of days. And in social media land, that's a long time. So there are many strategies that are effective. So when we're thinking about communicating a sustainability message, what we need to be doing is we need to be thinking, okay, as with every message, what is my purpose? Who is my audience? And what is my medium? So here's this message that I want to convey. What is the fundamental purpose? And I think that sometimes when we're very passionate about something, and sustainability communication lends itself to this, sometimes we can get really excited about something and feel like this is such an important message that we can lose track of our purpose. And so I know I do this a lot with family members when I'm upset about something that they're saying. I either shut down or I react very emotionally. So I forget about my purpose. What is my purpose? My purpose, well, my number one purpose is probably to get along with my family in the best way I can. My number two purpose might be to kind of convince them, although I wouldn't say I hold out much hope for that, really. Get along, be somewhat true to myself, and maybe convince them a little bit or at least soften their position. If I react emotionally, I do none of those things. I make people angry at me. I don't convince them that, maybe they can be thinking about this in a new way. And, so it's a bad scene when I get emotional about something. So when you're communicating any message as a communicator, no matter what it is, keep your purpose in front of you at all times. And then we always need to be thinking about how we are going to craft our message for our audience, right? So, who is our audience? What are their worldviews and values? And how can we speak to them from where they are? Not from where we want them to be, but from where they are now. And that is a really important lesson for all of us to learn as communicators of anything. So, empowerment strategies, which include developing competence to recognize non sustainable activities and to apply knowledge to remedy them. So, when we're communicating, it's not just enough to talk at people and give them the facts. Ideally, we want to be empowering people. We want to be empowering them in a way that is, I'm going to use this word, sustainable. In other words, after we're done our rant or whatever it is, we want to move them in a way that they're going to continue on and they have the tools to continue on. So, empowerment is key. Increase participation and the space for individuals to influence change in a sustainable way. So, increased participation, yes. Empowerment, participation, these are vital. And the space for individuals to influence change in a sustainable way. I'll give you an example. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it's all kind of mushing together in my head. I was part of an initiative to create a space for climate change conversations. And so we were actually meeting at the coffee shop out of the bouldering gym behind MacEwan. And then, of course, that all fell apart around the time that COVID hit. And, a lot of people were moving from Alberta at that time. And so, that was the end of that. But the idea was there, the idea to create a space where like-minded people could get together and talk about stuff and strategize and perhaps have ideas that they could share to build a momentum and help people feel like they're not alone. Okay, education should create the conditions for self-determined and autonomous action and not just to train changes in behavior. So what we don't want to do is say, you need to do this, this, and this. Because when we do that, what we get into is I'm going to say, a plastic straws situation. Now, what's wrong with banning plastic straws? Well, nothing's wrong with banning plastic straws. I think it's fabulous that not many people are using plastic straws anymore, or fewer people are. But it sort of misses the point. Plastic straws are a tiny, 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 tiny little bit of the problem. And sure, this creates momentum, etc., etc. But it's kind of what happens when you tell people what to do. Instead of creating understanding and empowerment and interest in a whole range of sustainability issues, we hyper focus on this one teeny tiny little thing. And some people hope that it will mean that eventually we'll get into bigger initiatives and bigger change, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes by hyper focusing on one thing, we kind of start to stall out, and it can actually lead to a sort of a situation where people who disagree with you or people who don't want to see change actually, mock you about things like plastic straws. Well, I don't care if I'm mocked, but I do care if the initiative stalls and if we spend all of our energy on something that, while meaningful, needs to be much bigger. So we really need to create an understanding where people feel like they are creating initiative and they have the big picture and they are creating action. And that will create much bigger change in the long run. Okay, I want to talk just a little bit about framing. So framing ties into communicating anything, but especially sustainability, because people are very passionate one way or the other about sustainability issues. People want to see change, or they really do not want to see change. So some people want to see change because they see there's a problem and they don't want this problem to continue. Other people feel very threatened by change. Change might threaten their worldviews and values. It might threaten, or might seem to threaten for them, their job or their way of life or the things that they, for one reason or another, hold dear to themselves. Now, our job as sustainability communicators is to show people that change can be good, that change can not only create the world that we want to live in, but that it can have a place for everyone. So it can be very inclusive. I think that one of the things that we really need to focus on in sustainability uh, communication is creating community, not leaving people behind. When we focus too much on what we want people to think, we forget that we need to encourage people to come along with us and to see a vision that they can buy into. It's not just about us saying, hey, this is my vision, this is the way things need to be, and you need to get on board. Otherwise, you're an idiot. That will not convince anyone. If we want to persuade people that this initiative might be a good idea or that we should maybe um, care more about that, or really this particular politician is in a better place to uh, do this thing that we want them to do. If we want to create a persuasive message, we must be thinking about our audience. Okay, so let's look more at these headlines.